Hello again, everyone. My name is Adam Hamer, and today is part 8 of my testimony about the 1990s gate program. And in this part, we're going to start discussing the occult, black magic, and the Pentagon's secret occult programs, as well as, you guessed it, Michael Aquino and Mindwar. This episode is about, as much as it's about the occult, it's about psychological warfare and why it is that governments around the world have engaged in expensive, immoral, unethical research on this exact topic. So, let's go back to the era where MKUltra was an active, acknowledged program. During this same era, the government also created a litany of other programs and sub-programs tied to the same research aims, which included understanding the mechanisms of the human mind for control, behavioral modification, enhancement, degradation, etc. These were wide-ranging programs. There are extensive lists of the MKUltra sub-programs and affiliated side programs. One of these programs, it was called MKOFTEN. This program, on the surface, was researching psychopharmacology and neurology, as in the interaction of medications and drugs, the human mind, and the function of the human mind itself. As much as this program was researching that, this program was also involved in the study of what they termed folk beliefs, which are also known as occult practices or rituals, and the stated reasons as to why the military agencies were researching this in the program MKOFTEN was as a form of weaponized anthropology. And since the day of that era, that's been the predominant narrative that has dictated why these programs existed in the first place. That narrative is directly connected to mind war and psychological warfare. The idea being, the researchers who undertook MKOFTEN may or may not have had actual literal belief in the occult rituals that they were practicing. The value they saw in these folk beliefs, as they termed them, lie in their ability to manipulate a person's psychology, aka where mind war comes in, and how mind war relates to the manipulation of said psychology. Because what is mind war? Mind war was a doctrine written by a notoriously foul DIA Army officer named Michael Aquino. Excuse me, I was going to call him Michael Inscom. That could be appropriate, but we will call him by his name. Army official Michael Aquino, who was involved with a variety of horrific scandals, which I will be not discussing in this video. What I will be discussing is mind war and the Temple of Set in one moment. Mind war. Not only was it written by Michael Aquino, you will see right here it was written by Mr. Colonel Paul E. Vallely. Let it be known, Mr. Vallely is on, I believe it is the board of Turning Point USA. And Michael Flynn is affiliated with these individuals. As my understanding, he studied under them. That said, Mind War was a military paper written by Michael Aquino and Paul Vallely in 1981. The full title is From Psy-Op to Mind War, The Psychology of Victory. Now, how does mind war and psychological warfare tie into occult, ritual abuse, MKOFTEN? Well, you have to look back at what I said about the intel agency's viewing of these programs as folk and anthropological. You see, because to these agencies, it wasn't necessarily that the spiritual beliefs were considered valid. It was that the rituals themselves presented rife cultural scripts with which the intel apparatus and military apparatus could exploit, both internationally, in populations around the world, and domestically. The discussion as to whether or not these occult rituals in formalized settings produced recorded results in the field of the paranormal is a topic for another discussion. For today's discussion, we are centering primarily on why it was an Army intel officer and someone affiliated with the high echelon of Turning Point USA wrote a paper in 1981 designed for military audiences that advocates for, among a number of immoral different techniques, using psychological warfare on the population of your own nation. Now, this is how you get to the Monarch program, what I've started talking about, Gladio USA, the development of werewolves, and military industrial scale abuse programs. Because Michael Aquino details in this paper that Mindwar itself should be waged covertly, and suggests a variety of different tools with which psychological warfare can be waged on a population of a nation that is being run by the same individuals who are doing the mining. That's pretty much the gist of what makes this such a ridiculous concept. And furthermore, you see it in our world every day now. You see it also echoed in foreign military doctrines. The Russian Gerasimov Doctrine is essentially a modern mimetic evolution of this concept. The idea that one must wage informational warfare at all times, 24 hours a day, against all members of the world, even their own population, because this originated from the idea from a bunch of salty Vietnam veterans that the failure of the Vietnam War was not because the war was uncalled for, or the war was a failure, or that America lost. It was because there wasn't enough patriotism at home. And this patriotism was seen by some individuals, such as Aquino, as being akin to a group of saboteurs, which is where Phoenix 2, in relation to Monarch and Gate, comes in. Because Phoenix 1, you see, was a civilian torture program developed in Vietnam. And Michael Aquino was a part of it. Phoenix was primarily operated by, I think, MACV SOG, but I think there were other groups that took part in it. It was primarily a special forces operation that was extremely horrific, and yeah, it's not a good practice. It's not something that should have been continued, but you see, it was brought home, as a lot of times these things are. And so that's where we come full circle to the Pentagon's studies of black magic, because as we've already discussed, they had already begun doing this with MKOFTEN back in the early days when MKUltra was acknowledged to have been going on. And MKOFTEN, aside from researching psychopharmacology and neurology with a cover story that included anthropology and folk research, they were also looking to apply these folk traditions, aka ritual, to traumatize people, to brainwash people, to control the beliefs of people. And that gives us the birth of modern psychological warfare. Because you see, what is the unconscious? The unconscious is just that. It's not conscious, but it's where the majority of human behavior originates from. So psyops don't cater to the conscious mind. They're built for the unconscious mind. That's the point of both a lot of esoteric ritual, is to put one in contact with the unconscious forces in their own mind. And it's also the stated goal of a lot of psychoenergetics, anomalous mental phenomena, and psychotronic researchers in the military and at large. And so this is where the nexus point occurs between study of consciousness, study of weaponry, psyops, memes, and the occult. Because you see, when these projects began, the occult was a very valuable tool with which you could leverage in order to subjugate a foreign or domestic nation or person. So in the case of a country operating under the doctrine of Mindwar, such as America, 2026, you see leadership justifying unjustifiable use of tactics against domestic citizens. This is a direct evolution of Michael Aquino and Paul Vallely's theories in Mindwar. And further, I would note that I think it is highly reflective of the poor state of our military and intel leadership to conceptualize new and cutting-edge things that they are using documents from the 80s, including but not limited to Rex 84, which we will get into in another video. And as most viewers know, if you're familiar at all with American history, is a completely absurd idea from 1980s. And the idea that this kind of thinking, Mindwar, Rex 84, cable splice, garden plot, has any traction is really sad. But that's what happens when really bad ideas from the 80s, like Mindwar, are allowed to take root and morph over time. Because since the Gerasimov Doctrine has come out, our military intel has taken things in an even more absurd and bizarre direction, as have the Chinese and the Russian intel agencies. And again, that's a topic for another time and another day. But how this all relates to the original weaponization of black magic in our modern times is in the idea that black magic can be used as a very effective tool of psychological warfare. And in addition to that, it can be also used to facilitate the induction of a variety of altered states of consciousness, which can be used for the aims of those with the knowledge of how to exploit the human unconscious, which is why there is a nexus between the study of esoteric ritual, altered states of consciousness, neurology, the government, and psyops, because this is the ultimate merger point of folk belief and weaponized ideology. Take, for example, I began to tell you a little bit about Tokoloshe and my experiences with the Tokoloshe and the Zumbi ritual. It's a very difficult topic for me to talk about for a variety of reasons. This is not a singular one-off event. This is not something that was just done. Oh look, good luck. A bird shit on my head. See? That's good luck. Yeah, definitely. It is. The Tokoloshe ritual. I can't believe a bird just shit on my head when I was talking about that. Well, yeah. Yeah, I think that's a sign I'm gonna end the video here. And on that note, because like I said, it's good luck when a bird shits on your head, especially in the context of what's being discussed. So thank you for watching my testimony, part 8. Goodbye.